from the contemporary global anti-Semitism report from this office, but from Mr.
In 2008,
so
yeah.
This, you may not testify to this, but it's in there, right? I guess he wrote it. I don't know.
Well, a staff person of his wrote it.
So the quote. This is an excerpt. Those criticizing Israel have a responsibility to consider the effect their actions may have in prompting hatred of Jews.
I'm not going to answer to it. He's going to have to.
Okay, so that kind of stuff, that's up to him.
Right. I don't think the 50% of the Israeli population that criticizes a policy of the State of Israel have to stop and think, am I being an anti-Semite?
Okay. This is out of the blue here, but I'd like your feedback on this. Another kind of criticism of you or your office. And it comes from, are you familiar with the Israel Lobby book by Mearsheimer?
Of course.
You read that. Is that, first of all, a lot of people have called that anti-Semitic. What's your perspective?
I have not read the book.
You have not read the book. Okay, he has stated, and I saw this in the video, that this office is part of the Israel Lobby. How do you respond to that? What's your take?
I spend a great deal of my time saying the following sentence. George Mitchell is the special envoy in Middle East peace. I'm the special envoy on anti-Semitism. Look at my travel schedule. Where have I been? I've been to Ukraine. I've been to England. I've been to Poland. I've been to Lithuania. I'm going where anti-Semitism increases are being reported, where Jewish communities are feeling vulnerable, and I believe that's an important part of my job.
What do you do? What exactly, when there's some problem in the world, you actually physically go there, and what exactly is involved?
Okay, I'll tell you what I just pick a country, Lithuania. I go to Lithuania, I meet with the Prime Minister, I meet with the Foreign Minister, I meet with the Minister of Education, Minister of Justice. In my conversations with them, I have specific issues I raise. In Lithuania, it is that they're not passing their restitution bill to the survivors of the Holocaust. And in Lithuania, there were not many survivors. And I meet with members of the Jewish community, and everywhere I go, there's more than one chief rabbi, so I meet with the chiefs and find out what's on their minds, how safe they're feeling, what's going on, hear from them, talk with them about what their needs are, and to what extent I can be helpful to those needs. I meet with non-governmental organizations that aren't only Jewish, that are interfaith, that are interethnic, and talk to them about anti-Semitism. Now, what was your question? What do I do? So I'm there. So I talk to the Prime Minister, and I say to the Prime Minister, there are a few things happening in Lithuania that I have very serious concerns about. One is the restitution bill is not passing. You're the Prime Minister, make this happen. And then I talk to other people. I meet with the Minister of Education, and I say, what are Lithuanians learning about their role in the Holocaust? Because I believe you can't move on until you understand your history. And if there's a complete denial or misinformation, how can they fully participate in the new era? They can't. So while I was there, in addition to speaking with the Minister of Education about what programs they're having, I asked to speak to a classroom of future Lithuanian diplomats. So I go to the university, it was in Kaunas, Lithuania, and I spoke to a class of diplomats. And I tried to explain to them how they have to understand that Lithuania killed the highest percentage of Jewish population of anywhere in Europe. And that in the main, it was done by Lithuanian police, Lithuanian army units, and Lithuanian countrymen. And I asked the classroom, how many of you know that? And there was a pretty still room. Now, the good news is they didn't push back on me. They didn't say, yeah, but the Soviet oppression was worse, which you sometimes hear. They listened. They said, well, what should we do about it? What do we do about this? And we talked about education. One said, I've never met a Jew. I walked over and shook her hand. But I said, there are new ways to communicate. don't talk to me, I'm techno-stupid, but people use technology to talk to people all over the world. You have many ways to learn about your history, learn about the reality of Jews. And when I told this classroom that Lithuania had one of the largest Jewish populations in the world prior to the Holocaust, they were stunned, absolutely stunned. And then I told them, and if there hadn't been such persecution, Bob Dylan and Leonard Cohen and all Three Stooges would be Lithuanians. And they laughed and then asked me what's the Three Stooges?
So
That's what I do.
So a lot of people don't want to face their past.
A lot of people don't.
You always confront that?
I try to confront it, but I don't confront it like, hey, you, on the street. I talk to the Minister of Education. We talk about various curricula. We talk about making, not just religiously making amends, they literally have financial amends to make. And I talk about that. I'm not the only one talking about that, but that's what I do. And when I was in Lithuania, the issue of the cemetery came up. I mean, these things happen, and some of it's organic. I go planning to talk about the fact that Lithuania was trying to prosecute several of the partisans that survived, the people who survived in the forests. They were trying to prosecute them for collaborating with the Soviets. How ridiculous and painful and horrid that is. Of course, I was planning to bring that up, which I did, but I met with the Jewish community and the cemetery became an issue. That's why I meet with the Jewish community there. What are you feeling? What are the issues you need raised to government?
So you actually have open door. You're powerful enough to meet prime ministers and stuff.
I have. I mean, you know, governments are open, and I'm an official representative of the U.S. government.
Okay.
And by the way, when the prime minister from Lithuania came back to the United States for a meeting here, he called me and wanted to have breakfast with me to continue our conversation. So yes, of course.
In many countries, it's a crime to declare that the Holocaust never happened. What's your perspective on that? Does the U.S. need such a law? Why or why not? What's your opinion of it, countries that have such laws? On that.
We in the United States treasure our First Amendment. We believe in the freedom of speech, freedom of expression, freedom of religion, freedom of assembly. So we would never support a bill that says you can't say this word, you can't show this emblem, you can't. But advocating for freedom of expression has a responsibility, and that is to call it out when it's hateful. So if a website is up that calls on hurting Jews, we call it out as despicable, but we don't call for it to be closed down and make it a crime to say that.
Okay. There are many kinds of peoples and minorities who face oppression and bigotry throughout the world. Why is it important for the United States government, through special programs like your agency, to defend especially Jewish people in the world?
Because it's a specific problem. There is a tension at all times between the particular and the universal, the identity aspect and the values aspect. At no time will I, when advocating on behalf of the Jewish community or on behalf of eradicating anti-Semitism, will I deny at all that there are other hatreds. As a matter of fact, I'd like to do the opposite. I want to engage other vulnerable populations in working together. I want to speak out when the Roma are being abused and burned alive, and I want Muslims speaking out against Holocaust deniers. It's much more powerful, but it's also community building. And that's how I come at this job, trying to build coalitions and have others speak out against anti-Semitism.
Okay. Well, along those lines, now this is a charged question, and I got this from Mearsheimer, again out of the book, right? And so the question I have, let me quote this to you, and then he says, a poll released in March 2007 found that 55% of Israeli Jews wanted segregated entertainment facilities, while more than 75% said they would not live in the same building as an Israeli Arab. More than half of the respondents said that for a Jewish woman to marry an Arab is equal to national treason, and on and on and on and on. So the issue, first of all, do you accept that?
I have no idea. I haven't read his book. I didn't see the polls. Most Israelis are secular, so I don't know
Well,
where
I
that.
guess
But this is about Israel. This isn't about me. This isn't about the United States government.
the question, I guess, is bigger than that. It's about, do you understand your, and this came up with Mr. Rickman, do you understand your office to actually go beyond anti-Semitism? You talked about the things you're concerned with, oppression of other peoples. Do you actually envision this office engaged, actively engaged in those things too?
I just told you a story. I went to the OSCE conference and I read Farah Pandit's statement and had her read mine for two major reasons. One, to have more impact, and two, to try and get non-Jews to speak out against anti-Semitism. And when you want that to happen, Jews have to speak out against other hatreds, which, of course, Jewish community regularly does. I have a laser focus on anti-Semitism, but I am not so foolish as to think that we can combat anti-Semitism alone.
Okay, Abe Foxman, of the ADL.
Good friend of mine.
Okay. In an open letter to you, maybe earlier, he said, quote, "The modern state of Israel is the most significant common element of our heritage," unquote. Do you agree with that? Is that the most significant factor?
I don't know. I'd have to think about that. I don't know in what context Abe was saying that. But, you know, Abe and many other wonderful Jewish leaders might draw lines between what is anti-Israel and what is anti-Semitism in different ways. Again, bring 10 Jews. Well, you bring 10 Jews in a room, you're going to get 11 different lines drawn. So, you know, if I disagree with a Jewish leader on one thing, we agree on 99% of the other things.
Okay. But there's a lot of discourse these days about the quote, new anti-Semitism, and it's often revolving around the state of Israel. Do you have any perspective on that?
Well, let me tell you about the new anti-Semitism I'm experiencing. These trends. I'm seeing 6 major trends in my travels, and I've been in the job a little over 6 months. One is that the bad old-fashioned anti-Semitism, Jews killed Jesus, and Jews kill Christian children for matzahs, or Jews steal bodies for organs. I mean, those are unfortunately alive, living, and happening in places that would shock you, like Sweden. These things are awful, they're age-old, and you're seeing them still today. The new anti-Semitism that we're seeing falls into many different kind of categories. One I would call Holocaust denial, where you have leaders of countries that are soon to get a nuclear weapon, saying Holocaust never happened. You see religious leaders. When I was in Poland, a bishop said the Holocaust is an invention of the Jews. It's still out there that people are denying that the Holocaust ever happened. Another thing I'm seeing is Holocaust relativism, where it happened, but it's overstated, and we really need to focus on is the oppression by, and then fill in the blank, it's off in the Soviet Union, where they're trying to conflate terrible, awful repression and oppression by the Soviets, which was truly horrible, with genocide, with an intentional desire and apparatus to exterminate people. There is not an equivalency there, and I'm seeing increasingly in some circles the desire to see that equivalency. An example, and I did bring this up in Lithuania, there is a genocide museum in Vilnius in Lithuania. And I went through the museum, and it's a really good museum. It just doesn't happen to be about genocide. It's about the KGB and how horrific the repression under the Soviets. But it is not about genocide. So I brought up to the Prime Minister and the Foreign Minister. I said, why do you call that the Genocide Museum? It's historically dishonest, and you're missing the opportunity to learn certain lessons. And they said they'd take it under advisement. But that conflating is a form of anti-Semitism that I think is relatively new. A fourth kind that I'm seeing that is bone-chilling is Holocaust glorification. where you are seeing, actually seeing, clerics look at a camera. Next to them are live pictures of the concentration camps, the famous pictures of smiling people throwing dead bodies into pits. And the cleric says, "Isn't it wonderful to see the humiliation that the Jews are experiencing? Allah willing, we will be the perpetrators next time." The glorification of the Holocaust, we couldn't make that up on a bad day.
This is documented?
Absolutely, absolutely. It's been on Al Jazeera, it's been on Egyptian television, and repeatedly. And the final trend, in addition to the old-fashioned, the three, Holocaust denial, Holocaust relativism, Holocaust glorification, there are two others. And one is the fear of other. In an economic downturn, people are desperate. They just hate everybody. And when people are hated, Jews are right near the top of the list of everybody's lips. And then there's the new anti-Semitism, where it's anti-Semitism because they view Israel as a Jewish collective and therefore not worthy of existing. And all six trends are disturbingly visible as I travel.
And you lecture about this?
I talk about it all the time.
Okay. Could you, going back to the protocols of the elders of Zion, is that still around?
Oh, it's around. I mean, Egypt had a television series on it. It's a bestseller in Japan, of all places. It's at Saudi book fairs. It's everywhere. It's very troublesome. It's very painful to see such an outrageous forgery viewed as something people need to read, and then they quote it as evidence of their theories that Jews want to take over the world. It's a despicable thing.
Have you had occasion to speak, probably not, with anybody in that realm?
Not yet. Not yet. I will. Oh, yeah.
And how on earth would you have the occasion to meet those kind of people? And are they in positions of power?
Well, it all depends what you call power. Do they have a following? Does that mean they have power? You bet. I'm about to go in 2 weeks to Auschwitz and Dachau with a group of imams. I have an opportunity in this trip not only to have them try to get their heads around a cultured, smart, well-educated people becoming willing executioners and building efficient death factories, but the responsibility, after you have borne witness to that, to speak out on it. And that's what I'm hoping they'll do when we come back.
You have said, this is a generic, but I'd still like your comments. As with any form of prejudice, anti-Semitism is often based in ignorance and fear. Could you just elaborate on that?
Well, ignorance. They're being taught stupid things about Jews. I mean, I was just shown earlier today a television clip of it's a clip, I think it was in the Palestinian Authority, but it was somewhere in the Middle East, where they were commemorating the anniversary of the death of Yasser Arafat. And these children were being asked, what does this day mean to you? And their answer was, the Jews killed Arafat. It's like ridiculous. The Jews did not kill Arafat, but that's what these kids are being taught. So their feelings against the Jews. They didn't say Israel. They said the Jews. He died in France. That's ignorance. Fear is when things are getting out of control and you're being taught the Jews own all the banks and they run the media and they control Congress. And you're afraid for your livelihood and putting food on the table of your kids. And you've been taught somewhere along the line that Jews are responsible for it. We see an increase in their anti-Semitism, and they're acting on their anti-Semitism.
How often do you run into that sort of thing? Jews run the media, banks, and all that stuff.
I told you I was meeting with the Imam of the largest mosque in London in April, and he said to me, why are we talking about anti-Semitism when the Jews own all the banks, run all the media, and control the United States government? I mean, this is a major imam in a growing Muslim community in London. Do I run into it? Yes.
Do you have any particular projects, future projects in mind? Special endeavors?
Well, sure. In Kazakhstan, at the OSCE conference, I rolled out an initiative that I'm calling the ART, A-R-T initiative. It stands for Acceptance, Respect, and Tolerance. And I identified 6 different non-governmental organizations that I had visited that were promoting actively in advance, not just reacting to acts of intolerance, but were promoting it. And several of them are run by the Jewish community. Not all of them were, but all of them dealt in an interfaith, interethnic way, focusing on youth to advance acceptance, respect, and tolerance. I want to focus on those sorts of models and highlight them wherever I go, because in their own little way, they're making a big difference. And it isn't all grand speeches that I give to a large group. It's also giving some voice to groups that are doing some very good things.
Okay. Could you discuss, please, the monitoring? You discussed the combat aspect, the monitoring aspect. How exactly does that occur?
Okay, we have embassies and consulates all over the world. Congress has told us for 20-some years that we are to give an annual report. It's called the Country Report on Human Rights. And every year, we make a report, country by country, on what's going on in those countries. And our various embassies and consulates report in, and we ask for non-governmental organizations, human rights organizations, religious communities to report to us what's going on. And then we do put this in a major report. It is considered the gold standard internationally on reporting what the situation is. We do that in the annual Human Rights Report, and we do it annually in the International Religious Freedom, where the same process goes on. Our embassies and consulates are monitoring the media and meeting with groups, and they do their report. In addition to that, we have non-governmental partners that we ask to report in, and every year that report. Both of these reports are very well read. They are, countries wait to see, what is this report going to say about us? Some of them, want to object. Some say you treated us fairly. There you have it. That's what we do, and that's how we monitor it.
And how exactly does the government, can the U.S. government, your office, pull them in line a little bit? That is a matter of
well, one of it is calling it out. And so if these things are happening, and they're in an official United States government, remember, we are still the superpower on the globe, and they pay attention when our report comes out. And they want to meet with us, they want to find out how, their goal is to make our next report less harsh on them. In the meantime, we meet with various members of the State Department and different groupings and come up with plans of how we're going to deal with that country, which issues we're going to raise, which prisoners are we going to demand are released, and that's the result of how we have just reported on these countries.
Okay. You're quoted online as saying this: "It's a scary time with people losing the ability to differentiate between a Jew, any Jew, and what's going on in Israel." Could you elaborate on that?
I've been talking about that. When you disagree with someone, some politician in Israel, some minister in Israel, on a piece of policy that and you disagree with them, that is legitimate discourse in a democracy. When you hold me responsible for a decision Israel makes, or some young yeshiva student in France responsible, and you don't like that decision that's been made in Israel, and so you beat up the kid walking down the street, that's a very scary thing. They don't differentiate. They hold all Jews collectively responsible for a policy they disagree with. And that's why it's very important that people understand that anti-Israel sometimes is a cover for anti-Semitism. They wouldn't be beating up that kid in France or Germany or Spain or wherever it's happening if they could make that distinction. And they can't in many cases. And that's what I meant by that.
Is there anything I'm missing here? Is there something that's a giant elephant here that I am...
Giant elephant?
Or
No.
even a small elephant. Is there something that you think I needs to be said?
No,
about this
but
issue?
because of the questions that you've asked me and the things that you have prefaced your question with, this is going to be a tough question.
Mhm.
I just want you to understand that those people who have decided to spend their time, they obviously have way too much time on their hands, calling me names and deciding that they would do the job differently. Those people who have come forward and said that are very active in a different political party than I am, and that is in power right now. And I just hope you understand the partisan politics that are going on. And you know, people can disagree with me on how I prioritize things. People can disagree with me on my approach to combating anti-Semitism. It's fair discussion. But people who, there is no way they want to see anyone sitting in this chair, it doesn't have to be Hannah Rosenthal, succeed or try to move the needle in any way. I hope you see it for what it is.
Yeah, well, the thing, I still don't understand how you're perceived as being anti-Israel, an anti-Israel lobbyist.
They're absurd.
Well, even the Republican, unless it's just a will for that reason to see your demise, I don't understand that really.
Me either.
It seems pretty far-flung.
I don't have a clue how anybody could ever say that about me. Clearly, somebody who knows me wouldn't say it.
Okay. All right. Thank you very,
Oh,
very, you've been
surely.
very kind. You know, and it's always interesting because I never know. You know, I've started doing this. I've interviewed a number of people, and